And welcome, everyone. It's the Sports Writers. They're back. Phil Stacy, Matt Williams, Nick Giannino, and Nick Kukaru, all here to discuss North Shore sports. We're at a seasonal change with the end of spring, beginning of summer, and a state champion tabbed this past week, just the last few days, with the St. John's Prep lacrosse team winning a state title. And Nick Giannino, I know you were at the game, and Phil Stacy, I know you've covered a lot of prep lacrosse this year and in previous years. So, Nick G, why don't we start off with the championship win over BC High?
Yeah, sure. They got it done back to back now. State champs, third time in program history. What was the other one? 2010, Phil?
Yeah,
I want to say.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they were the favorite all season long. Phil can tell you more about that. You know, they just had a ton of depth, and I'm getting a lot of feedback here. You guys getting that? Might be better now. I'm going to talk through it. Yeah, I think their depth and just their talent from all classes, you know, from sophomores to seniors, really carried them. It was a tie game against BC High at the half, 4-4. They had shot out to a 3-0 lead. They let up a couple quick goals in succession towards the end of the first quarter that allowed BC High to kind of crawl back into it. But at the half, I think they kind of had a gut check discussion and just said, you know, let's go out and do this thing. This is it. This is the final game. We know we can beat this team. You know, they had beaten them twice already this season. And they went out and put 4 unanswered goals in the third quarter to kind of pull away and put the finishing touches on down the stretch. But yeah, I thought, you know, from my perspective, and Phil, you can touch on this too, but I thought their speed really came into play, you know, in transition. BC High liked to kind of work the clock and move it around patiently in the offensive end, looking for shots. But anytime the prep was able to get a stop or a steal and get out in transition, they were just blazing past the defense. And more often than not, it set up a goal. So very unselfish team. I think yesterday, I got the stats right here. We had Harlan Graber had a really great game, 3 goals for him. And Charlie Wilmot also had 3 goals. And then Jimmy Ayers, you know, their star junior, had a couple of goals as well. But Jake Vanna, a sophomore who had broken his wrist, or his hand, I should say, in the last regular season game, I believe it was, missed the entire playoffs, was just cleared to play the day before the championship. Came in, obviously, I don't know how his conditioning was or anything like that, but state championship game, you had to imagine the adrenaline was running through him. And he came up with 2 big assists in that third quarter where they went on that little run to gain some separation. And then he had a late goal as well. So having him back was huge. And again, I just think their depth kind of wore the other team down, wore BC High down a little bit, as well as their speed and their skill. They're a really good team. You know, they only had the 1 loss this season, and you know, they capped it off with their second straight state title. And the defense too, you got to give a ton of credit to the defense. Phil, you can mention some of those names. I don't know them off the top of my head, but their long poles were terrific. Their one-on-one defense was great. They were blocking off the cutters. Just a really good, especially in the second half, allowing just 1 goal against BC High. That was huge to kind of help seal the deal.
Yeah, I wasn't able to make the game, family commitment, and it was a big one, which is the only reason I missed the state championship game. But I did talk to Coach John Pinchon late last night. I saw all the previous playoff games. I've seen them, you know, during the regular season. To be quite honest with you, Bill, I think it would have been an upset if they didn't win the state title. That would have been the biggest upset of all. This was probably the best all-around prep team in history of lacrosse, and may very well be the best ever lacrosse team from this region. You know, that 2002 Beverly team would give it its run for its money. 2010 prep team was very good, but this team was just so incredibly deep, as Nick alluded to. Talent all over the field, great defense with Teddy Cullinane in goal. A lot of seniors in front of him, Nolan Philpott, Luca Winter as the long stick middies. You got Christian Rooney, Connor Kelly, Tim Harriman up front, Matt DeCara, another senior there on defense. The D middies led by guys like Ty Ambrosch, really played well.
It
Tommy
was
Sani,
hard to pinpoint every player because they all contributed. And
yeah,
you look at the sideline, and there's like 40 guys on the sideline. It's incredible. He just
maybe more.
gets guys in and out. Yeah, I mean they had probably double the amount of players as BC High.
They don't have rules about that. I mean, they just let you dress as many as you want, like it's a football game. That's kind of surprising to me.
Yeah,
I know.
I'm not sure how that works either. I don't know if some of
Hockey
those guys were JV and they just came along for the ride or what, but they were all in
Yeah.
uniform.
Like
Well, they
hockey
were
and
able to get a
baseball.
ton of JV guys in on the early rounds of the tournament. So, it's a good question. I really don't know if there's a limit on how many you can dress or how many can play, but I bet in some of those like early round games of the playoffs, they used 40 players in those
Yeah.
games. I'm also comfortable saying that Jimmy Ayers is the best player they've ever had, and he's only a junior. To me, at least scoring wise, the player I always measure other prep guys against is Garrett Campbell. Now, for those people who've been following lacrosse for a long time, Garrett played about 20 years ago. There was a time around the turn of the century where St. John's had a wave of players from Beverly, and they were excellent players. And Beverly High was also very good, so it made for a great rivalry at the time. Garrett was a Beverly kid who I want to say finished with something like 374 career points, just an unbelievable scorer. I think Ayers could easily score 100 points a season if they needed him to. And as I think he finished with like 86 anyway this year. But one of the biggest reasons for the prep success is that they're so spread out. I mean, Captain Tommy Sani, he's like, Ayers is going to Johns Hopkins for lacrosse. Sani's going to play Division I at Providence. He had 70-something points. You had Charlie Wilmot, who Nick mentioned, another captain, high score in the high 40s for St. John's. Holland Graber, Will Sawyer, Matty Morrow, on and on and on. They just had so much depth. And Vanna's another one. I think he was third on the team in scoring. Sophomore, he may be in the same conversation as Ayers when we're all said and done. I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete. Like Ayers, like Sonny, both hockey players. He is also a hockey player. So those guys all won 2 titles in a 3-month span, having won the hockey championship. Defenseman Timmy Harriman won the skate steam championship. So he's another guy who won titles there. Vanna coming back, from talking to Coach Pinchon last night, it sounds like he really reinvigorated that offense, Nick, when he came into the game late in that first half. And boom, right away, he assists on a goal like 10 seconds after getting onto the field, gets another big one in the third quarter, and then scores himself. He's a mercurial talent. I know that, he wasn't going to play unless he was cleared to do so. And he's got a big summer coming up, heading into his junior year. It's a big recruitment summer for him. I know he's an excellent student. He's probably looking at Division I Ivy League for lacrosse. He's got family ties to both Harvard and Yale, maybe even Brown too, if I remember right. So I'm sure those are all schools that are on his radar. He certainly hasn't hurt himself in the regular season or that championship last night. And another thing that Coach Pinchon said to me is, we want this thing to be sustainable. I mean, winning the titles is great, and that's what they strive for, and it's everything that all the work they put in all season to strive. But he admitted to me, he's like, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't already starting to think just a little bit about next year and where we can plug in holes and where we can make improvements as need be and what guys we're going to fit into what spots and all. So they're not looking for this to be, oh, great, we won 2 titles back to back. That was awesome. They're hoping to make this a long run. And, who's going to argue against them with the depth that they have and the talent right now? I think I tweeted out this morning that over the last 3 seasons under John Pinchon, the prep is 75-6. That's saying something there. So they do not look to be vacating that top perch anytime soon.
Phil, Nick Giannino mentioned the 1 loss this year. I'm thinking back when he said that, I think it was one of our podcasts, Phil, that you brought that 1 loss up. I mean, I think you were talking about that, saying, what's the meaning of this 1 loss? We'll put it in context. Is it, not a worse thing to have a loss, in a season?
No, it's kind of a wake-up call. They lost to Acton Boxer 8-4. I mean, this team averaged over 12 goals a game, and they lost the game 8-4. Just everything fell apart. Nothing was working. It was April vacation week, and it was a time for them to reassess and get things better. Hey, I talked to another coach last night who said, geez, isn't it boring when the prep wins? You know, they were predetermined. They were number one. Everyone knew they were going to win. They were going to be another Catholic school. And I said, I look at it quite the opposite. And I could be, you know, out on an island here, but, you know, everybody loved the Patriots when they had their 20-year run. And, you know, Brady was winning 6 championships here and all. And people outside this area hated the Patriots because they won all the time. And they, you know, whether they would admit it or not, they probably wished that they were the Patriots. I think it's that way when it comes to prep lacrosse. They're just at a spot now that Duxbury was in 10 years ago and Longmeadow was in before that. And, you know, it's like anything else. It's cyclical, but right now they're on a roll. And no, I don't think it's bad for the sport or anything of that nature. To me, first of all, it's fantastic lacrosse at the highest level of high school, you know, at least parochial private school. And, you know, it's like, yeah, okay, everybody knows the deal. The parochials are in with the publics, and maybe that's not the fairest thing. I mean, I was a public school kid. I know what that's like. And, you know, they have players from X amount of communities, or everybody else might be from 1 or 2 if you're a regional school. And it's like, you know, yeah, that's all true, but the rules are the rules, and you got to play within the rules. And if the rules say that the Catholics play with the publics, then do your best to beat them. Don't complain about it. You know, fair or not, what can you do?
Yeah, and it's one thing to have the talent, but I thought kind of one of their most important aspects to the team was just that, you know, team mentality, I guess you could say. Just very unselfish. They don't have like you mentioned, 3 or 4 studs on their team. They don't have just one guy that's getting all their goals. You know, they're dishing it around. They're waiting for the right shot. Like Vanna came into the game. He wasn't looking to score right away. He was looking to set up his teammates and get their offense going. And that mindset really helped. I mean, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't play like a team and don't believe in each other, then it's not going to work out.
Well, and they also have elite coaching. You can't, you know, just, you know, you can have great players. If you have a lousy coach, nothing's going to get done. They have, I hear many people say, you know, I was down in Medfield for a game last week, and the coach said to me afterwards, "Oh, Pinchon's the best coach in the state." He's not the first guy to have said that to me. But it's also just, you know, that mentality of we're going to win no matter what. And I know that's easier said than done, but that plays a long part into it, you know. And then conversely, maybe getting other teams to believe you're not going to beat us even on a day we might be off. We're going to find a way to beat you.
All right, go ahead. I don't want to stop you. Go ahead, Matt. Yep.
I do think it's a problem in the sport, boys and girls. None of these tournaments were good, and I do think they need to figure out a way to address this. You know, you don't need 10-goal games in the quarterfinals, semifinals. I know the final was relatively close, but you know, the boys is one thing, the girls especially. You know, every game in the Division I and II tournament, the team that won both of the tournaments was a blowout. You know, the team that won Division I won every single one of its games by an average of 13 goals and wasn't even the number 1 seed. I mean, you tell me how that happened. You know, champions last year go undefeated, wasn't the number 1 seed, and then proceeds to pound every single team they play in the playoffs. And the same thing happened in Division II. Notre Dame Hingham, that has probably no business in Division II, won every one of its games by more than 10. And let's say you're a team from the North Shore that lost to a team by, say, 8-10 goals, but then went out and got beaten by Notre Dame or Westwood by 8-10 goals. So you're like 20 to 25 goals away from these teams at the top of the division. That's going to be really frustrating. So I do feel like the sport, boys and girls, is going to need some rejiggering, and doing the divisions the way they did it, the same as every other sport, is not going to be healthy going forward. You know, that's got nothing to do with the prep or their dominance or whatever, but I just look at the scores for boys and girls, and that's not healthy. That's not good for anybody.
I think that Notre Dame team won their championship like 14-1. I mean, if your opponent in the state championship's only getting 1 goal, I don't know how there can be that big of a discrepancy. And that's Division II. Like you said, they probably should have been Division I. But
you don't want running time in the state final. I mean, you know,
But how is that different than, say, like Catholic Memorial football?
Well, they don't belong in Division II either. I mean, we've talked about that 100 times, right?
Right,
I mean,
but would it be that much different if they played Division I, in all honesty?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they played a couple of close games in a Catholic conference. That Springfield Central team that won the Division One Super Bowl, had a bunch of Division One players. I mean, maybe, right? Like, but
Well, I
I
think, an easy solution would be if there was a return to a Super 8 in some sports, but they seem very reticent to go back to that. I think a sport like lacrosse would be ideal for that.
they want the data, and I mean, I see these scores, and I say this is the data that you need. In my opinion, anyway. Especially the girls. I mean, my goodness, these blowouts in the girls. I mean, they talk about equity and if you have a Super 8 for boys, you need it for the girls. I mean, the girls lacrosse might be the sport that's crying for it the most. When you look at some of these scores, I mean, some of these scores are just for state finals and Final Four games. I mean, this sport might be crying for it. And we wouldn't even have any local teams in it, right? I'm just looking at it from 10,000 feet, because it kind of came up, the health of the sport. Is this bad for the sport? And, as a neutral observer, I look at it and say, yeah, I kind of think it is. And I do think it's very discouraging for the local teams that, get blown out and then see the team that blew them out go get double blown out. And it's like, oh my God, we're so far away. We're not even on the same planet as these teams.
Yeah, but what's the solution? Like, what's the answer? What are they going to do?
Pick them in Super 8, and then you got a chance.
Super 8, yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I'm going to move this along because we got a bunch of things we got to touch on here. Nick Giannino, we're going to talk tennis in a moment, but Nick Kukuru, I want you to kind of recap a couple of things from the Cape Ann area. We haven't been able to hear from you too much here so far. And then we're going to talk about some things happening this week coming up. So Nick, how about a wrap on a couple of things in the Cape Ann, Manchester, Essex in particular?
Yeah, 2 Manchester Essex teams in state finals, another in a Final Four with girls tennis. But yeah, I think I saw the only competitive lacrosse state final last night. Manchester Essex lost to Dover Sherborne, but it was a very good game. I thought Dover Sherborne made fewer mistakes. I think that was the difference. But as far as the talent there it was pretty even. I think it was about a 7-minute stretch in the first half. Dover Sherborne scored 5 goals, 5 unanswered goals. And that was kind of the difference. Manchester Essex was playing catch up the rest of the way. They actually carried play for the majority of the second half, but Dover Sherborne had a good defense too. So it was a real good game. 10-7 Dover Sherborne win, and Manchester Essex looks like a team that'll be back, in the mix again next year. They got 4 all-league players returning, a freshman goalie who's a star already. So they're looking like they have staying power. And the other big story, Manchester Essex baseball bringing home their second state title in 3 years. And I think this one was a shocking one to me. If we're being totally honest, if you asked me to, rank the teams on Cape Ann, just my area going into the tournament, Manchester Essex baseball might not have even been one of my top 5. They were 10-9, they were up and down. The 2 biggest rivals, Hamilton Wenham and Amesbury, were on their same side of the bracket and beat them 4 times combined. So that looked like it was going to be tough for them to get by them. But Leicester upset Hamilton Wenham. Then Manchester beat Leicester the next game. Abington upset Amesbury, and then Manchester went and beat Abington the next game. So they got through, and got to give a ton of credit to Coach BJ Weed. I don't know. I can't off the top of my head name any other coach on the North Shore that has 2 state titles. I know Frank Carey has 2 out of the Cape Ann League, but I know there aren't too many with 2 state titles in their cap, and he has 2 in 3 years. This one was a real big feather in his cap, because you look at this Manchester Essex team. Vaughn O'Leary is a legitimate ace, as he showed. They really don't have a superstar player. They're just all scrappers. They make contact and they're fast, and that works in high school baseball. They put a ton of pressure on the defense. All of them can run. And, we saw it in the state finals. They faced a great C-Comp ace in Jaden Aruda, and they kept the strikeouts down. They only struck out 6 times, and he was throwing hard. He was hitting 80. And, 2 strikeouts. They strung a few hits together 1 inning, and O'Leary took care of the rest, and they ended up winning. So, just big news there. This was a program when I first started covering Manchester Essex baseball. They were the worst team in the Cape Ann League by far. And now they got 2 state titles in 3 years.
If I were a baseball team in the Cape Ann League, I'd want to change my name to Hornets, because that's the only way you're going to win a state title, right? I'm sorry, Phil.
Sounds like it.
No, I was just saying that BJ Weed really has a nice little program going over there. From someone who, was a standout player, and then he played for what, did he play for not the Mad Dogs? Did he play for the Navigators?
I think he might have, yeah.
Yeah, I think he did too.
Freedom. He played
that
for
right,
one of
Willie?
the local teams.
I don't think so. I mean, when was he in college? Because the Navigators are college players, so it would have had to have been the Mad Dogs, right? I mean, because he was in college quite a while back, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
I
want to say, didn't he play in the minor leagues?
Oh no, I think so. Yeah, no, he had a tremendous career. I mean, he's a wonderful baseball guy. Great.
Played for the North Shore Spirit whenever they were the North
Spirit.
Shore.
Spirit, that's what
yeah.
it was. Okay.
The one between the Mad Dogs and the Nats. Spirit. That's exactly.
But he
right.
played in like the Dodgers farm system, didn't he? I remember.
That I'm not sure. I know he was a Division II college player, very good one too.
Down in
Yeah.
Jacksonville, I think it was, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Signed as an undrafted free agent with the Angels for 3 years. It says here. So.
Oh, okay.
Obviously running the North Shore Freedom helps, right? Those guys get a ton of play time and great instruction and everything. And, you do. I mean, I think it bears mentioning before we move on to the tennis, like, unless you're the prep, like you to win a state title, you got to get a little bit of luck, right? And look at Leicester, Hamilton Wenham runs into Leicester's ace because they were able to pull him for pitch counts from their first game. If he didn't pitch that whole game, maybe Hamilton Wenham beats them and they're the ones winning the title, because then Manchester Essex doesn't have to face that kid and they roll Leicester and then they win the ship. So, you got to get some bounces along the way. And, I'm not like devaluing what Manchester did. I'm just saying, when the pitching lined up, like that's nice. And geez, their best pitcher transferred to Governors before the season, right? The kid Heaney.
Yeah, exactly.
They lose him. I mean, imagine if they had him, they might have been undefeated with Heaney and O'Leary, going there. They might have given Amesbury a run for their money too.
Yeah, I went from thinking they were going to have the best 1-2 punch, and then finding out Heaney transferred. I'm like, oh, this might be a rebuilding year for him. And then it kind of was. They lost to Ipswich in the last game of the regular season. I mean, they had a 4-game losing streak in May where 3 of them were by 10 runs. So I mean, they were kind of up and down, but they put it together at the right time. They tightened up their defense for the tournament, and they're never out of any at bat. I think that's the biggest thing with that team.
And real quick on BJ too. That's how you have a great leader is a kid transfers and they don't say, oh geez, like we're in trouble. We lost all our good players. They say, forget it. We're just going to win without him. And that's really a great sign of a good leader, I think.
All right, let's go to tennis. Nick Giannino, maybe a couple of tennis notes for us you have from the paper that you've been covering.
Yeah. Well, we had 2 state champions on the girls' side, both undefeated seasons as well in Masconomet in Division II and Hamilton Wenham in Division. Were they 4 or 3? Geez, I'm losing my mind now. Yeah, Division 4. And they played back to back, which was kind of cool. Masco was finishing up. They held the state titles at MIT on those courts with beautiful venue, 12 courts over there. So they had Masco finishing up a marathon match, and Hamilton Wenham got started. But yeah, Masco pulled out a 3-2 win. In tennis, you got the 5 matches. You got to win best out of 5. It was 2-1. They were down to Westboro, and then their second singles player, Tegan Scully, came back from after losing the first set, won the next 2, kind of turned things around there. She's a tremendous player, just a freshman, ton of power. Was really impressed by her. So she came back to tie the match at 2-2. And then the first doubles team was the only one still standing, and whoever won that was going to win the state title. They had lost the first set, came back to win the second set, a close set. Then they fell behind 4-1 in the final third set. And they came back and they won 7-5. It was Shaylee Moreno and Maya Klink. So great duo there. Huge win for Masco. This is a team that, like I said, went undefeated all year, but had never really faced a team like Westboro. In the NEC, they just don't see that kind of competition. They actually scrimmaged Hamilton Wenham and beat them in a tight match at the end of the year. Obviously didn't count towards either team's record, but so I believe first girls state title on tennis for Masco, and then Hamilton Wenham did the same thing about an hour or so later. They won 4-1. It was a little more comfortable win. They actually had clinched the match while one of their girls was still playing. So the team kind of, rushed onto the court and celebrated while their third singles player was still going, which was kind of cool. But yeah, impressive season for them. Joe Marr took over that team 3 years back after coaching the boys team for, a few decades. And he had guided the boys team to a state championship back in 2009 and never really thought he'd end up on the girls' side, but was blessed with, a really talented lineup, a deep lineup, and they were able to get it done in Division IV. So a really cool day over at MIT this past weekend on Saturday, and, 2 undefeated state champs from the North Shore. And then we had Newburyport also won, so to have 3 of the teams come from the North Shore area win the girls' state tennis titles. That's pretty cool.
All right, guys, I do want to touch on a couple things happening ahead here, but before I do that, Matt, maybe you could touch on the Peabody softball team. I know you're very much aware of what they've done. I'm throwing you on the spot here on this one, but they got to the state final, lost a close one.
Yeah, tough loss in the state final, 5-3 against Taunton. Went out to UMass. It was about a 2-hour trip. Unfortunately, their bus driver took a wrong turn. They left Peabody at 1 o'clock, wanted to get to the field around 3:30 so they could stretch and snack and really relax, and ended up not getting there until 4:30. So who knows if that affected them or not. But I mean, I think it was just a case of every team being really evenly matched in the Final Four of the Division I softball, and Peabody played almost a perfect game in the semifinal to beat Wachusett, and then really didn't play their perfect game in the final and ended up losing, made some uncharacteristic mistakes. I would say not necessarily errors per se, but mistakes that led to extra bases, not extra outs in the terms of physical errors, but extra bases in terms of a hit that maybe could have been kept to a single, turn it into a double or a triple. And in a state final, extra bases can matter just as much as extra outs, right? And that's what ended up happening. But certainly a great season for them. They go 22-3 and hope to be back there again next year. They only lose 2 starters, and they have a bunch of freshmen on the bench that have experience and some 8th graders that they really like coming up. So they're not going anywhere. They hope to use the experience to build on it. But just 2 games that I saw, highly competitive, really, really high level softball, edge of your seat type stuff, especially that semifinal game against Wachusett. It was one of the best games that I've seen in any sport all year. That was really just a great, great ball game. And the state final wasn't too far behind. So lesson learned for them. I mean, you have to, when you get to that stage of the tournament and it's evenly matched, you have to play almost a perfect game and get a couple bounces we talked about with Manchester. And in Peabody's case, I think they got those bounces in the semis, and it just wasn't meant to be in the final. The pitcher that went against them had a great changeup, had them off kilter all day long. They just couldn't time it up. They only struck out 4 times. They put the ball in play a lot, but never got it on the meat of the bat, right? Never was able to really drive it. And, Taunton took her out after she walked a batter to start the 7th inning. I guess the coach didn't have much of a scouting report because they brought in a really hard thrower. Peabody, a tremendous fastball hitting team, started hitting that girl all over the yard. They got 3 runs. They got the tying run on base, and then they made the switch, brought the slow thrower back in, and she got the final out to win the title, and that was that.
Matt, I want to bring Nick Kukuru in to talk about the Fiesta in Gloucester. So we're recording this on Wednesday. So Nick, if people want to pop up there, maybe what should they be looking for? When should they be looking to do it? And so it's Greasy Pole and all this week. So what's up, Nick?
People want to see the Greasy Pole. That's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4:45. But you do have to sit through a same boat race if you want to watch it. So those come first. The women's final is on Friday, and the men are on Saturday and Sunday. So yeah, first Fiesta in 3 years. It should be interesting. I'm not looking forward to. I feel bad for whoever has to do the police blotter over the weekend for us at the Gloucester Times. I've done it before.
Did you do the Greasy Pole? Did you ever do the Greasy Pole? No. Okay.
No, maybe when I was a kid, I go up there a few times, but no, I never done. I rode same boats a few times. And let's just say it was not my jam. I was not very good at it. I was cut. I was on the cut list from multiple crews in 2 years. So I hung up the oars, but now I cover it. So
there you go. I'll just mention the Agganis game starting on Sunday, and obviously the Agganis All-Star Classics. On MSO News Sports, I'll put a schedule up there on the post. But gentlemen, we're looking at the time. We have a few minutes left. So anybody with any parting thoughts or any comments about the spring sports or looking ahead, we have a few minutes remaining.
I just, real quick, wanted to say something about Ray Morneau, the quarterback of the 1997 North Shore Tech Super Bowl championship team. Became an assistant football coach at the Tech, then became an assistant football coach at Shawsheen. He passed away last week, so I just wanted to say that our thoughts as a podcast and as a sports staff are with all the Bulldogs and Hawks and Rams. I think Shawsheen's the Rams. Ray, by all accounts, was a great guy, a really nice teacher, and a good coach.
I did not know that, and yeah, he was a terrific player. On it, they were still a relatively young program under Paul Worth, and they went 13-0 that year with Ray to win a Super Bowl, and I wasn't aware of that. That's very sad news to hear. Well, just getting back to recap this past season, I was doing a little checking in. Matt and I were checking over some stuff today, and we found that if you just take teams that played for like MIAH championships, or in the case of Pengria, New England Prep School championship, we had 15 different teams win state championships in our area this year, which is unheard of, never been done before. 15 in 1 year. St. John's won 7 of those. Again, we're not going to rehash prep against public schools, but it's crazy. I think a lot of it obviously has to do with the new tournament formats. There's more divisions, and it gives teams like a Hamilton Wenham, which won a soccer championship and a tennis championship, to use them as an example. It gives them maybe greater opportunities to win state championships, which is great. So 15 team state championships. It doesn't even count like state track relays or maybe some ski individual championships that somebody won, or wrestling titles or whatnot. But it's really a remarkable thing what the schools have been able to accomplish in our Salem News area during that time.
So we should really give a big shout out to Hamilton Wenham AD Craig Genualdo on the work that he's doing over there, for sure.
We absolutely should.
Yeah.
Genualdo's the best, man. We love Craig.
Yeah.
Now he's got to fund. Not only does he have to fundraise to build turf over there, he has to fundraise for rings now too.
Sure. Well, I think they'll come up with the money.
I don't know. Rings get expensive. I know they got some real big jewels over there in Swampscott for their rings for the Super Bowl. But those can get people get envious of those things. Everybody always tries to one up each other.
That's true. That is true.
We
might have to update Willie the blings the thing that you did a few years ago.
I mean, Manny did.
Oh yeah.
That he was gonna. So the prep wrestling made talk about the best teams ever at the prep. That wrestling team this year has got to be the best.
Unbelievable.
Ever. Yeah. Their old wrestling.
Unquestionably. Unbeaten New England champions. That's crazy.
Yeah, they were dominant.
He won the ring contest a few years back, and Manny did say that he wanted to try to top that ring with this one. I never saw the finished product, so I'll be curious to see how much bling is on that one.
So Willie, being the pro wrestling expert that you are, could we say that the 2021-2022 St. John's Prep Eagles grapplers would be on a par with what, say, like WWF in about 1985 in terms of impact and popularity and dominance? Did we lose them?
I don't know. I don't know what happened.
Wow.
May not want to come.
Philly may not. Is wrestling.
What did he say? I missed it.
When you get to talking wrestling, when you do that wrestling, Phil, it's a little highbrow. It's a little above all.
I had a big lead up. I don't know if I can duplicate that. I said prep wrestling this year. What era of WWE or WWF wrestling would it equate to in terms of dominance and popularity?
I think it's got to be the 70s, right? Because I think Manny would prefer that his guys be compared to Bruno Sammartino, and perhaps not some of the more theatrical types of the more recent eras, right? That those guys that took things a little more seriously, the shooters, if you will, strike me as more prep types than than some of the more flamboyant folks in the modern era, right?
Well,
I-
see, I was thinking the Gorilla Monsoons of the world were not exactly physical specimens.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I was
I mean,
thinking more of the Ricky Steamboat, Hulk Hogan,
I could see that. I could see that. I mean, especially with the little guys too. I mean, because the prep dominates those smaller weight classes. I mean,
Right.
that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, the Rick Rude type wrestlers, the smaller guys who can
the
get it
physique
done.
small, yeah, it's that's definitely a possibility, I would say.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Phil Stacy. Good stuff. Okay. Gentlemen, always good talking with you, and we'll talk again soon.
See you guys.
Thanks, Bill.